Part 1. The Whisper in the Wound. They say God speaks through silence. But what if he also speaks through pain? What if the ache you carry, the one that never leaves, the one that wakes you at night, is not a punishment, but a message? What if pain is not the absence of God, but his most intimate language? The story does not begin in peace. It begins in breaking. The kind of breaking that tears everything you believed apart. One day, everything you love stands before you like a house of glass, and before you can blink, it shatters. You are left standing in a quiet that is too big for your body. The world keeps moving, but you don't. And for the first time, you realize silence is not empty. It is full of questions that sound like thunder. You ask, "Why me?" But the echo answers with another voice, softer, deeper, ancient. It says, "Because only pain can make you listen." That is the moment you understand. This isn't cruelty, it's a calling. Pain is the teacher no one wants but everyone needs. It doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to show you what cannot be destroyed. There are two kinds of voices in suffering. The first is the scream, loud, wild, desperate. It wants out. The second is the whisper beneath it. That whisper is where truth lives. When Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you," he wasn't speaking in poetry. He was describing anatomy, the inner design of the soul. Where you are wounded, light gets in. Where you are cracked, grace seeps through. At first you try to run from it. You fill your days with noise, faces, movement, anything to drown the ache. But pain is patient. It waits. It doesn't chase. It stands still, knowing that sooner or later, you'll return to it, because everything else will fade. One day, you stop running. You sit, and that's when it begins to speak. The first words are simple. "Do not resist me." You think you're hearing madness, but no. You're hearing mercy. Because resistance keeps the wound open. Acceptance lets it breathe. Pain only becomes unbearable when we fight it. When you stop fighting, something strange happens. You feel a warmth under the ache. It's not relief, it's recognition. You realize pain is not your enemy. It's your doorway. There's a story told among mystics. A man prays for God to speak to him. He hears nothing. Days pass, months, years. Then one night, his heart breaks. His love leaves. His world collapses, and he falls to his knees. In that silence, he hears it. The voice he begged for all his life, and it says only this: "I was here all along. You just could not hear me through your comfort." That's the secret few dare to tell. Pain strips away the illusions that keep us numb. It removes the false safety that hides the divine voice. It humbles the mind, bends the pride, cracks the armor, until all that's left is listening. In that raw space, you don't find answers. You find presence. You don't hear explanations. You hear love. So if your life is breaking, if your heart feels like a wound that won't close, maybe it's not punishment. Maybe it's the sacred language of transformation. Maybe God is speaking not in thunder, not in scripture, but in the quiet ache beneath your ribs. And maybe, just maybe, pain is his way of saying, "Come home." Stay with it. Don't rush to heal too fast. Let the pain breathe. Let it speak. In time, you'll learn its rhythm, its voice, its wisdom. You'll see that every tear was a sentence, every scar was a verse. The divine doesn't only write in light, Sometimes he writes in fire, and as this story unfolds, you'll see how that fire becomes a guide, not to destroy you, but to reveal the part of you that cannot burn. If these words find a place in your heart, stay for the journey. Let this be more than a video. Let it be a mirror. And when it ends, if you feel even a spark of truth, share it. Subscribe. Leave your reflection below. You never know who might need to hear the same voice speaking through their pain. Part 2. The weight of silence. After pain comes silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence that follows an explosion. The kind where even the air feels heavy and the world sounds distant. You sit there, inside yourself, surrounded by invisible dust. The pieces of your old life are still falling, but you no longer try to catch them. Something inside you whispers, "Let them fall." At first, you mistake this silence for emptiness. You think it's punishment, but slowly, something shifts. You begin to hear what you never noticed before, the quiet hum beneath everything. It's there in your breath, in the ticking of time, in the faint echo of your heartbeat. It's not silence at all. It's presence, the kind that asks for no words. This is the part of the journey most people turn away from, because silence terrifies us. It shows us the truth without decoration. It takes away the distractions that protect us from seeing ourselves. And when the noise is gone, you realize how much of your life was built on running. Running from stillness, from loneliness, from your own reflection. Rumi said, "Listen to the silence. It has much to say. But to listen, you must stop fighting the quiet. You must let it press against your skin until you can no longer tell where you end and it begins. The silence becomes your teacher. It shows you the space between your thoughts, the distance between who you were and who you are becoming. You begin to see that the silence after pain is not absence, it's incubation. The soul is being remade in secret. Like a seed buried in the dark earth, something within you starts to stir, unseen. You can't rush it. You can't dig it up to check its progress. You can only trust that the darkness is doing its work. There are moments when you want to scream again, to fill the air with noise just to feel alive. But each time you try, the silence answers with patience. It holds you like a mother holds a restless child. It does not explain. It simply stays. You realize that silence does not need to be understood. It needs to be surrendered to. And in that surrender, you start to hear a second sound, the sound of your own soul breathing. It is fragile at first, like a whisper behind a door. Then it grows steadier, warmer, deeper. You realize that you were never truly alone in your silence. You were in conversation all along, not with the world, but with something vast and ancient inside you. The voice of pain begins to soften. It no longer shouts. It becomes rhythm, pulse, music. You start to see that what you called suffering was actually a sacred translation, a way for the infinite to speak in a language you could feel. Pain became the ink, silence became the paper, and together they wrote the story of your awakening. This realization doesn't erase the ache, it refines it. Pain loses its cruelty and gains purpose. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" The moment that question changes, the energy changes. What was once despair becomes devotion. Silence begins to glow. You notice beauty in small things again, a flicker of light on the wall, a distant bird call, the simple grace of breathing. These moments feel like gentle nods from the divine, small affirmations that you are exactly where you need to be. The mystics say silence is not empty, but full of answers. Yet those answers rarely arrive as words. They come as peace that makes no sense, as tears without sadness, as love without object. You don't know how, but something inside you starts to trust again. Not in people, not in fate, but in the quiet wisdom that lives inside the stillness itself. And so you sit, you breathe, you let the silence do what noise never could. You let it rebuild you from the inside out. You understand now that this silence is not a pause before life begins again. It is life, raw, honest, holy. Stay in it a little longer. Don't reach for escape. Let this stillness become your teacher, your prayer, your companion. Because in the silence that follows pain, God is not far away. He is breathing through you, softly, endlessly, like wind through the reeds. If these words reach the quiet part of you, let them settle there. And if you feel that whisper stirring again, the one that sounds like hope, hold it close. We'll follow it together in the next part. Part 3. The shape of suffering. Pain has a shape. You can feel it, even when you can't describe it. Sometimes it sits in your chest like a stone, heavy and still. Sometimes it burns like fire under the skin. Sometimes it feels like falling through yourself, endlessly. Every person carries their own shape of suffering, unique, exact, carved by their story. You may have tried to erase it, to cover it, to make it disappear. But pain is stubborn. It will not be painted over. It insists on being seen. It wants to be known, not hidden. And when you finally stop running, when you sit and look at it without fear, something begins to happen. The shape starts to change. It softens. It breathes. It reveals that it was never just pain. It was transformation in disguise. Rumi said, "Don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters." Those words sound beautiful, but they are an instruction, not a comfort. He is telling you to look at what you fear most, to face the thing that breaks you, because what you look at with love, you redeem. What you run from owns you. At first, looking hurts. You see all the places you bled, all the moments you wanted to vanish, the shame, the loss, the loneliness. They rise like ghosts, and you think you'll drown in them. But then you notice something. You are still here. The pain comes, but it doesn't destroy you. It only shows you where you are still holding on. It shows you what still needs to die for you to be free. Every soul that walks this earth carries its own cross, its own weight, its own mystery. You cannot compare your suffering to another's. What feels like the end for you might be the beginning for someone else. The divine crafts each burden to fit perfectly, not to crush, but to awaken. The shape of your suffering was measured for you, precisely, with love. When you start to see pain this way, it changes texture. It's no longer chaos. It's design. You start noticing patterns in your heartbreak, lessons in your losses, light hiding in the cracks of everything that went wrong. You begin to understand that suffering is not random. It is choreography. It's the slow, deliberate dance between your soul and the divine sculptor shaping it. Think of it this way. Every tear is a chisel. Every ache is a stroke of the artist's hand. You are being carved, refined, smoothed into something beautiful. It doesn't feel gentle because truth rarely is. But once the form begins to emerge, once you start to glimpse what you are becoming, you realize it was worth it. The divine does not waste pain. He uses it as a tool to reveal what you were always meant to be. There is a story about a sculptor who was asked how he created such perfect statues. He said, "I just remove everything that isn't the figure." That is what pain does. It removes everything that isn't you. The false identities, the masks, the expectations. The layers you thought were protection were only cages. Pain breaks them. It frees the real shape beneath. And when the carving is done, when the dust of old illusion settles, what remains is not what you expected. It's softer, humbler, truer. You start to love yourself, not because of your strength, but because of your scars. You realize those marks are not proof of failure. They are proof that you lived, that you learned, that you let life touch you completely. Rumi once said, "The wound is the place where the light enters, but it's also where the light escapes." Meaning, what breaks you open is also what lets you shine. Your pain does not make you less divine. It makes you visible. It makes you human enough for others to find God in you. So now, when suffering visits again, and it will, don't fight it like an enemy. Welcome it like an old teacher. Sit with it. Listen. Ask what it came to show you this time. The voice of pain is never random. It is the sound of your soul evolving. It is God whispering through the cracks, saying, "I am still here. I never left. I am shaping you still." You are not being punished. You are being sculpted. Every moment of pain carries the fingerprints of creation. And one day, when you look back, you will see that even your darkest night had the shape of light hidden inside it. If these words resonate somewhere deep, let them stay with you. Let them echo when silence feels too loud, because pain's voice is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your becoming. Part 4. The fire that purifies. There is a fire that burns to destroy, and there is a fire that burns to purify. The first consumes everything it touches. The second reveals what cannot be consumed. Every soul walks through both kinds, but only those who stay awake inside the flames understand the difference. At first, it feels like the end. You feel the heat rising inside you, melting away everything familiar. The things you thought you needed begin to fall apart. Your plans, your pride, your stories about who you are. You try to hold on, but the fire keeps taking. It burns through your illusions like dry paper. And then, when you think there's nothing left, it finds your heart. That's when the real transformation begins. Rumi said, "If you are irritated by every rub, how will your mirror be polished?" The fire is the rub. The world touches you, wounds you, challenges you, not to harm, but to reveal the reflection beneath the dust. The pain that feels personal is universal. It's the same flame that has burned through saints, poets, and wanderers since the beginning of time. When you are inside that fire, nothing makes sense. You don't see beauty. You see loss. You don't feel love. You feel absence. The heat is too much to bear. But there's a hidden mercy in it. The fire only burns what is false. It cannot touch what is real. The soul is flame itself. The divine spark within you is made of the same light that consumes you. You begin to notice this when you stop fighting, when you stop asking, "When will this end?" and start asking, "What is this burning away?" That question opens a door. The fire becomes less like punishment and more like initiation. You start to realize that this pain is not against you. It's for you. It's refining your gold. Gold cannot stay raw. It must face the furnace. The heat separates it from impurities until only brilliance remains. The soul is no different. Every grief, every heartbreak, every betrayal, each is a flame in the furnace of your becoming. The more you resist, the longer it burns. The more you surrender, the brighter it glows. One night, you sit in the middle of your burning and notice something strange. It's quiet. The fire still rages, but the panic is gone. There's a kind of peace inside the chaos. You realize the fire doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to free you. Every time a layer of fear burns away, the space inside you grows. The light becomes clearer. The heart becomes lighter. Rumi wrote, "Set your life on fire. Seek those who fan your flames." He wasn't speaking about destruction. He was speaking about transformation. The people and experiences that burn you are the ones that awaken you. The ones who mirror your fire remind you of who you are beneath the ash. There's a story that says, God once whispered to a burning soul, "Do not fear the fire, for I am the fire." When you finally understand this, your pain becomes holy. You no longer beg to be spared. You ask to be purified. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "What are you making of me?" The flames no longer frighten you. You begin to dance inside them. The same fire that once terrified you now lights your way. You feel warmth instead of fear, clarity instead of chaos. What once looked like death begins to feel like birth. You realize you are not burning down. You are burning open. The mystics say that the soul must burn 1,000 times to remember its own light. But each time you emerge, the fire leaves something behind. A deeper peace, a truer love, a clearer sense of what matters. The smoke fades, and what remains is gold. Not the fragile gold of pride, but the soft gold of surrender. You are not the person you were before the fire. You are something rarer. You are someone who knows that pain is not your enemy. You have walked through the flames and found God waiting on the other side, not as a judge, but as a friend, whispering, "Now you see, now you shine." If these words find you in your burning, take them as a hand through the smoke. The fire will not last forever, but the light it leaves will never fade. Let it burn what is false. Let it keep what is true. And when you rise from the ashes, you will understand. The fire never took anything real from you. It only revealed what was already divine. If you felt something move inside you, stay close. More light is coming. And if this fire touched you, share it. Someone else may be standing in their flames right now, searching for the voice of God within their pain. Part 5. The Surrender. There comes a moment when you stop fighting, not because you are weak, but because you have finally seen that resistance changes nothing. You can struggle against the storm all you want, but the sky does not move for your fear. The waves do not part for your anger. The fire does not cool for your begging. It all keeps going, wild, vast, indifferent, until you stop shouting and begin to listen. This is surrender. It's not giving up. It's giving in. It's the quiet act of saying, "I don't understand, but I trust." It's laying down your weapons, your control, your certainty, your demands, and allowing life to be what it is. Rumi said, "Give up to grace, The ocean takes care of each wave until it reaches the shore. You are the wave. You are being carried whether you realize it or not. At first, surrender feels like loss. You feel naked, without your defenses. You've lived your whole life trying to control what happens, to keep the pain away, to build walls strong enough to feel safe. And now those walls are gone. You are standing in the open, trembling. You think you've been abandoned, but this vulnerability, this exposure, is not abandonment. It's initiation. The divine does not ask for your perfection. He asks for your openness. He does not want your strength. He wants your honesty. The moment you say, "I don't know how to carry this anymore," something invisible takes the weight from your hands. You can feel it, the release, the space, the breath returning to your lungs. You realize surrender doesn't make you smaller. It makes you spacious. There's a stillness that follows true surrender. It's not the silence of defeat. It's the calm of alignment. You stop wrestling with what is. You begin to move with it. You see that life was never trying to punish you. It was trying to teach you how to float. You remember the line Rumi whispered to the broken ones, "Flow down and down in always widening rings." That's what surrender is. The art of floating in your own depth. You learn that control was an illusion all along. You never held the world in your hands. You only held your fear. Every attempt to control was an attempt to avoid feeling helpless. But the soul was never meant to be a fortress. It was meant to be a doorway. And the moment you let go, that doorway opens. What steps through is peace. Peace doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes quietly, like dusk after rain. It settles into your bones. You find yourself breathing differently. You start to see beauty again, not in perfection, but in impermanence. You notice that pain still exists, but it no longer rules you. It moves through you like wind through trees, and you sway with it instead of breaking. Rumi said, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." That's the paradox of surrender. You lose yourself to find yourself. You stop trying to be someone, and you start becoming something. The divine shape begins to move freely through you because you are no longer in the way. When you truly surrender, even the smallest things feel holy. A breath, a sound, a glance. You realize that every moment is saturated with presence. The same force that moves the stars is moving your heartbeat. The same light that rises in the dawn rises in your chest. You are no longer separate from anything. The line between you and God blurs. But surrender isn't something you do once. It's something you live. Every day asks for another letting go, of control, of fear, of stories that no longer fit. Each time, it feels like dying. Each time, it feels like freedom. You learn to die a little every day, and each death makes you more alive. There's a strange power in those who have surrendered. They carry a calm that nothing can touch. They don't chase, they don't fight, they don't boast. They simply move in rhythm with something larger. You can see it in their eyes, that quiet knowing, that still fire. They have walked through the storm and realized the storm was never outside of them. This is the mystery of surrender. When you let go, you don't fall. You rise. You are lifted by the same hands that once took everything away. You realize now they were never taking. They were making space. So breathe. Let it happen. The story is not in your control. It never was. But it is unfolding perfectly. And when you are ready, whisper softly to the fire within you, "I trust you." If this part of the journey resonates with you, stay close. The path only deepens from here. And if something inside you exhaled while reading these words, that was your soul remembering. It's safe to let go. Part 6. The lessons of the wound. Every wound is a teacher. It speaks in a language that cannot be learned from books, only from living. The wound is the classroom of the soul. It asks you to sit, to listen, to feel. It teaches what peace cannot. It shows you what love truly means. Not the kind that flatters or comforts, but the kind that awakens. When pain first comes, you resist the lesson. You cry out. You bargain. You beg for it to stop. You say, "I understand now. Please no more." But pain doesn't leave when you ask. It leaves when you learn. And what it teaches is rarely what you expect. It doesn't teach revenge or regret. It teaches depth, compassion, humility, clarity. Rumi said, "Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure." That is the truth that hides beneath every heartbreak and every loss. The same wound that made you fall to your knees becomes the place where you find your strength. The same silence that broke you becomes the space where you begin to hear God. There are lessons only the wound can give. It teaches patience when nothing changes. It teaches faith when everything falls apart. It teaches love without possession, forgiveness without apology, hope without proof. These are not ideas. They are transformations. They take root inside you slowly, quietly, like seeds growing beneath the ground. The wound shows you the limits of your control, and then it shatters them. It teaches you to trust what cannot be seen. It shows you that healing is not about returning to who you were, but about becoming who you were meant to be. Each scar is a signature of growth, proof that you have met pain and learned its name. You start to notice that the wound has rhythm. It opens and closes like breath. Some days you feel whole, others you ache again. That's not failure. That's the pulse of transformation. Healing is not a straight line. It's a spiral. You return to the same lessons, but each time at a higher level, each time with a little more grace. The wound also teaches empathy. When you've been broken, you can no longer look at others without tenderness. You see the silent wars behind their eyes, the invisible bruises beneath their smiles. You stop judging. You start understanding. You realize everyone is carrying something sacred and heavy. You begin to love more gently, speak more softly, listen more deeply. Pain also teaches truth. It burns away what was never real. False friendships, shallow dreams, masks you wore to be loved. What remains after the fire is authenticity. You learn to be honest, not because honesty is noble, but because lies are too heavy to carry anymore. You learn that truth and peace are twins. You cannot have one without the other. The wound teaches surrender too. It reminds you that healing doesn't mean control. It means alignment. You stop trying to fix everything. You stop demanding that life fit your image. You let life teach you instead. You let the wound breathe, and slowly, you realize that the pain wasn't working against you. It was working through you, sculpting you into something more whole. Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." But there is another side to that truth. The wound is also where the light leaves you. Through your pain, you begin to shine in ways you never could before. Others find comfort in your scars because they see themselves there. You become a mirror, reflecting back the truth that healing is possible. The wound teaches that love is not always soft. Sometimes love is the scalpel that cuts the infection. Sometimes love is the storm that cleanses the field. Sometimes love is the silence that waits until you are ready to hear. But in all its forms, Love is the force behind the wound. Even when it feels cruel, it is shaping you for something greater. When the lesson is learned, the wound does not vanish. It changes. It becomes wisdom. You carry it like an ember instead of a chain. It warms you instead of burning you. You begin to see that pain was never a curse. It was a conversation, one that took time to understand. Now, when new pain arrives, you bow your head instead of raising your fists. You whisper, "Welcome, teacher." You may still tremble. You may still cry, but you no longer run, because you know that whatever the wound brings, it will leave you more open, more honest, more alive. Every wound is sacred. Every scar is a verse in the scripture of your becoming. And when you begin to see them this way, you realize that your pain has not just changed you. It has made you capable of seeing the divine in everyone. If these words resonate within you, breathe them in. Let them settle where your wounds once ached. Because one day, those very places will glow, and you'll understand what the mystics always knew, that pain was never the punishment. It was always the path. Part 7. The compassion that grows from pain. When pain softens, it doesn't vanish. It turns into something else. It becomes compassion. The sharpness dulls, the fire cools, and what remains is a quiet tenderness for all that lives. You start to look at others differently. You stop seeing faces. You start seeing souls. The pain you once cursed becomes your teacher of mercy. You realize that those who hurt you were also hurting. You see the same wounds in their eyes that once lived in yours. The anger fades, not because you forget, but because you finally understand. Every heart bleeds in its own language. Every cruelty comes from confusion. Every silence hides a prayer. Rumi said, "Be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop." Compassion is the art of letting go, of grudges, of judgments, of the need to be right. You learn that forgiveness is not a gift you give to others. It is freedom you give to yourself. The moment you release resentment, space opens in your heart. And in that space, love returns. You begin to notice the quiet suffering of others. The mother hiding tears behind her smile. The stranger staring into nothing. The friend pretending to be fine. You recognize it because you have been there. Pain gives you new eyes. It makes you gentle in ways that wisdom alone never could. The heart broken by life becomes a vessel for the pain of the world, but it is not heavy anymore. It's spacious. You can hold others without drowning in their sorrow. You can listen without needing to fix. You can simply be there, steady, silent, alive. This is the highest form of love. Presence without demand. There is a kind of holiness in the ones who have suffered deeply and still remain kind. Their kindness is not naive. It's forged. It's the strength of someone who has walked through fire and chosen not to become smoke. They carry light in their eyes, not the light of innocence, but the light of endurance. You can feel it before they speak. You can trust it without words. When Rumi said, "Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder," he was describing compassion. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, like rain, gentle, persistent, life-giving. You learn that softness is not weakness. It's wisdom wearing the face of love. Compassion grows where judgment dies. You stop measuring people by their actions and start seeing the pain beneath them. You stop asking, "What's wrong with them?" and start asking, "What happened to them?" You realize that every person you meet is fighting a battle you cannot see. Every soul is carrying something sacred and broken. pain teaches you to listen, not to reply, but to understand. You learn to hear what isn't being said, the tremble in someone's silence, the exhaustion in their laughter. You realize that love is not about fixing others. It's about seeing them clearly and saying, "You are not alone." There's a strange magic in this kind of empathy. It doesn't drain you. It fills you, because when you care from a place of understanding, compassion becomes an exchange of light, not of energy. You give without losing. You receive without taking. You begin to feel connected to everything, the way trees share roots beneath the soil, unseen but inseparable. The mystics say that true compassion is not pity. Pity looks down. Compassion kneels. It meets pain at eye level and says, "I've been there too." It honors the dignity of every struggle. It reminds you that you are not higher than anyone, and no one is beneath you. You realize that all suffering is one fire, burning through different hearts. And so your life changes. You speak slower. You listen longer. You react less. You love more. The sharp edges of your past become the curves of understanding. You begin to see beauty in the fragile, the imperfect, the flawed. You understand that what breaks the shell of one soul lets another soul grow. Rumi wrote, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." That field is compassion. It's the place where all opposites dissolve, where pain becomes love, and love becomes understanding. You start to live from that field. Every act, every glance, every word becomes a small offering. You no longer ask, "Who deserves my kindness?" You simply give it because you remember what it felt like to need it. You become the hand you once prayed for, the voice you once needed to hear. And maybe this is what God wanted all along. Not perfect people, but compassionate ones. Not saints untouched by pain, but humans transformed by it. Those who have wept and still choose to love are the ones who keep the world from collapsing. So if you find yourself growing softer, don't mistake it for weakness. It means your pain has turned to light. It means your wounds have learned to speak the language of God. If these words find you in that quiet space of gentleness, hold them there. And if your heart feels ready, share this light. Someone else may be standing in their darkness, waiting to see your glow. Part 8. The Divine Mirror. After the fire and the silence, after the surrender and the lessons, you begin to see differently. The world hasn't changed. You have. The same streets, the same faces, the same sky, but now everything glows faintly, as if lit from within. You realize that life has been holding up a mirror all along. Every joy, every wound, every person you've met was that mirror, showing you something about yourself and something about God. Rumi said, "The beauty you see in me is a reflection of you." But the same is true for pain, the cruelty that wounds you, the love that heals you, the betrayal that breaks you. Each one is a reflection of your inner world, your shadows, your light. When you stop resisting what you see, the mirror becomes clear. Before awakening, you think life is happening to you. Afterward, you understand it's happening for you and through you. The people you meet are not coincidences. They are sacred messengers. The ones who love you are reminders of grace. The ones who hurt you are mirrors showing you where love still needs to grow. Everyone you encounter is God wearing a different face. The divine speaks in reflections. When someone's words sting, they point toward your unhealed places. When someone's kindness touches you, it reveals what already lives inside you. Every encounter becomes a conversation between souls, not bodies. You begin to listen differently, not to the words, but to what they awaken in you. Pain taught you to look deeper, and now compassion teaches you to stay there. You no longer label people as good or bad, right or wrong. You see that everyone is a mix of shadow and light, confusion and truth, just like you. The mirror never lies, but it never condemns. It only invites understanding. There's a moment when you catch your reflection in someone else's eyes and realize that all along you've been meeting yourself in 1,000 forms. The stranger you pass in silence, the lover who left, the friend who stayed, the enemy who pushed you toward growth. All of them are parts of the same whole, fragments of the same divine dream. Rumi said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." When you see this truth, judgment dies. You stop trying to separate yourself from the world. You stop saying me and them. You realize there is no them. Every soul you meet is part of you remembering itself. And yet this awareness doesn't make life easier. It makes it deeper. When you see others as mirrors, you can no longer hide. Every conflict becomes an invitation to look inward. Every irritation becomes a teacher. Every act of love becomes a reminder of what you are capable of. You start to see that the divine is not only in beauty, but also in brokenness. God hides in the eyes of those you struggle to forgive. The mystics say, "The world is a mirror of your soul. When it seems dark, look again. You may be the light that's missing." That truth can hurt, but it's the kind of pain that heals. It shows you that waiting for the world to change is a delay of your own becoming. When you change, everything shifts. The mirror brightens. You begin to move through life differently, less as a victim, more as a participant. You speak to others knowing that your words echo back into your own heart. You forgive because you understand that resentment is self-inflicted blindness. You love because love is the only way to see clearly. Even nature becomes part of the mirror. The wind whispers lessons of letting go. The ocean reflects the rhythm of surrender. The sunrise shows the endless mercy of beginnings. Everything speaks if you know how to listen. Soon, you realize that the mirror is everywhere, and it never breaks. Even in tragedy, even in loss, even in loneliness, the reflection remains. Pain no longer feels like punishment. It feels like a mirror polishing itself, shining brighter each time it's touched by your attention. This is the sacred paradox. The more you see the divine in others, the more you discover it in yourself. And the more you recognize it in yourself, the easier it becomes to see it in everyone else. That's the circle of awakening. Infinite, compassionate, unbroken. So when someone crosses your path, pause for a moment. Look beyond the surface. Ask, what is this soul showing me about myself, about love, about God? You might be surprised how every answer appears in their eyes, because the divine does not speak only in scripture or silence. He also speaks through strangers, through lovers, through enemies, through you. And when you can finally look into that mirror without flinching, when you can meet your reflection in another's pain and still choose love, that's when you will know that pain no longer needs to speak to you. It now speaks through you. If this truth echoes somewhere deep inside, let it stay. And if your reflection feels clearer after hearing these words, share this light forward, because every mirror needs another to shine. Part 9. The hidden grace. Grace doesn't always arrive with light. Sometimes it comes wrapped in darkness. Sometimes it speaks in silence. Sometimes it hides behind loss, waiting for you to see it. Grace is not always the hand that saves you. Sometimes it's the hand that breaks you open so you can finally feel. At first, it's impossible to recognize. Pain feels like cruelty. Confusion feels like punishment. You look at your shattered plans, your empty hands, your tired heart, and you ask, where is grace in this? The answer doesn't come in words. It comes in time. Grace moves quietly, rearranging your life from the inside, turning endings into beginnings without your permission. Rumi said, when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. That is the field of grace, the place where you stop needing explanations. Grace begins where logic ends. It doesn't ask you to understand, it asks you to trust. Look back at the hardest moments of your life, the nights that felt endless, the heartbreaks that tore you apart, the failures that humiliated you. You survived them. But more than that, you were changed by them. You became softer, wiser, truer. That change is grace. The wound was the doorway. Grace was the light waiting on the other side. There's a story that says, grace is like the wind. You cannot see it, but you can feel its direction when you stop resisting. Every disappointment, every delay, every detour, all of it guided you here. If you had received everything you wanted when you wanted it, you might never have found what your soul actually needed. Grace is the divine correction that looks like loss. The mystics often said, the broken heart is the seat of mercy. Grace lives there, in the cracks where your plans failed. It builds strength in the places that once felt hollow. It whispers, you are not forgotten. Even when you thought you were alone, grace was holding the edges of your world together. Sometimes grace takes away before it gives. It removes what you think you need to reveal what you truly need. It tears down illusions that were suffocating you softly. It pulls you out of relationships that your soul had already outgrown. It closes doors you kept trying to open because behind them was nothing but repetition. And though it feels cruel in the moment, one day you'll look back and say, thank God that ended. Grace also disguises itself as waiting. The long pause between what you want and what arrives is not punishment. It's preparation. You are being refined, aligned, expanded. The silence that feels like neglect is actually space. Space for your soul to catch up with its own prayers. When you look closely, you'll see grace in small things too. In the stranger who smiled when you needed it, in the timing that saved you from disaster, in the word you heard at the exact right moment. Grace hides in details. It's the invisible handwriting on the margins of your story. Rumi said, what you seek is seeking you. Grace is that seeking, the pull between you and the divine. Even your longing is holy, the ache to find meaning, to find peace, to find home. That ache itself is grace calling you closer. The fact that you still reach for light even when you're surrounded by dark means grace is alive inside you. You begin to understand that grace doesn't erase pain. It transforms it. It doesn't fix the wound. It blesses it. It doesn't protect you from falling. It teaches you how to rise. Grace is not a rescue from life. It's the realization that life itself is sacred. Every part of it, even the parts you begged to avoid. When grace finally reveals itself, it doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes as stillness, as clarity, as peace that feels undeserved. It comes when you stop demanding that life be fair and start trusting that it is meaningful. Grace turns the question, why me, into, Thank you. And the most extraordinary part, once you see grace in your own pain, you begin to see it everywhere, in others' stories, in every tear that leads to understanding, in every ending that hides a beginning. You start to live with quiet awe, knowing that nothing is wasted, that even heartbreak has holy fingerprints on it. So when life feels harsh, when you cannot find the divine in the noise, remember this: grace is patient. It hides not to punish, but to prepare. One day, you'll look back and see that everything that broke you was guiding you toward everything that healed you. That is the hidden mercy, the grace beneath the pain, the love that was shaping you all along. And when you see that truth, you can finally whisper, not with fear, but with gratitude, even this was grace. Part 10. The return to love after everything, the burning, the silence, the surrender, the lessons, the grace. There comes a still moment when the air changes. It's not dramatic, it's quiet. You wake one morning and realize the heaviness has softened. The pain that once felt endless now feels distant, like an old song playing in another room. You breathe, and for the first time in a long while, the breath doesn't hurt. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of your return, not a return to who you were, that person is gone, but a return to love. The kind of love that cannot be broken, because it no longer depends on anything outside of you. You start to feel it in small moments, in sunlight slipping across the wall, in laughter that rises without reason, in a stranger's kindness, in the way silence no longer feels empty, but full. Love begins to speak again, softly, as if it never truly left. Rumi said, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." Now you understand. Love was never something to be found. It was the essence of what you are. Pain didn't destroy love. It uncovered it. The fire didn't take it away. It burned away everything that wasn't it. You begin to see love not as emotion, but as being. Not as attachment, but as awareness. Love is the thread that weaves every joy and every wound together into meaning. It's the pulse that moves through all things, the divine rhythm hidden beneath chaos. And once you feel it again, you cannot unsee it. It's everywhere, in the stranger's eyes, in the wind that bends the trees, in the quiet hum of your own heart. Love returns differently than it left. It's wiser now, quieter, deeper. It doesn't beg or cling or demand. It simply is. You no longer chase love. You radiate it. You no longer ask, "Who will love me?" You ask, "How can I love more?" Because you've learned that the more love you give, the more you become it. The heart that once shattered now understands its purpose. It wasn't meant to stay unbroken. It was meant to open. Each crack was a doorway for light. Each scar was a mark of expansion. Pain was never proof of failure. It was proof of becoming. You start to forgive yourself for not knowing, for falling, for breaking, for surviving in messy, human ways. You realize that even your worst moments were part of love's plan to bring you home. Every tear, every mistake, every silence led you back to this, to the quiet, living pulse of love that beats beneath everything. The mystics said that love is not something you find at the end of the path. It is the path. It's what carried you through every fire, what held you in every silence, what whispered to you in every wound. When you cried out, "Where is God?" it was love that answered, not in words, but in endurance, in the fact that you kept going. Now, when you see others in pain, you don't rush to fix them. You see them as travelers on their own journey back to love. You offer presence instead of answers, compassion instead of solutions. You know that their pain, like yours, is sacred. It's their teacher, their fire, their own divine conversation. Rumi said, "The heart has to break to let the light in." But what he didn't say is that once the light enters, it never leaves. It lives there, quietly, forever. The heart remembers. Even when it forgets, it remembers how to find its way back. Love doesn't erase the pain, it redeems it. You begin to live differently now. You walk slower. You see beauty in imperfection. You stop rushing through moments because you understand that every breath is holy. You speak with gentleness, not because you are trying to be kind, but because you've seen how easily a heart can break. The divine love you once searched for in heaven now lives in your chest. It breathes through you, speaks through you, moves through your every word. You realize that love was never a destination, but the journey itself, the path, the teacher, the truth. And so you love, not because you need to, because you are love. The fire turned you into it. The pain revealed it. The silence shaped it. When you finally see this, gratitude floods in. Not the shallow kind, but the deep, trembling kind that makes you bow your head and whisper, "Thank you for everything. For the breaking, for the waiting, for the healing, for the love that never left." That is the return. That is the homecoming. To see that every scar was an opening, every loss was grace, and every moment, even the darkest, was love wearing a different face. So breathe, softly, deeply. You made it through the fire. You are the light now. You are the love you were searching for. And if these words find you in your own return, if you feel the faint pulse of love rising again in your chest, let it move through you. Let it guide you. Let it speak. Because someone, somewhere, is still walking through their fire, searching for the voice of God in their pain. Maybe they will hear it through you. If these words touched something in you, let them stay. If they brought even a spark of peace, share it. Leave your reflection below. Subscribe if you wish to walk further with this light. Because the journey of love never ends. It only deepens. And you, now, are part of that endless story. Part 11. The voice beyond pain. There comes a moment when even pain falls silent. It doesn't vanish. It just loses its name. You wake one morning and realize you haven't thought about the wound in days. The ache that once defined you is now only an echo. You are not fighting, not healing, not searching. You are simply being. This is the stillness after the storm. The fire has done its work. The ashes have settled. What remains is not emptiness, but clarity, the kind that doesn't need words. The mind is quiet. The heart is open. You feel everything and resist nothing. And in that quiet, you hear it. The same voice that spoke through pain, now speaking through peace. It doesn't sound like thunder or scripture. It sounds like breath, like the space between heartbeats, like silence made alive. You realize that God was never outside of you, never separate, never distant. He was the listener inside the crying, the calm inside the chaos, the love behind every loss. The voice that spoke through your pain is the same voice now whispering through your peace. I never left. Rumi said, Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. Now you understand. Pain was one translation, joy another, love another still. But beyond them all is silence, not the kind that hides truth, but the kind that is truth. You no longer seek the divine through suffering. You see the divine in everything. The voice beyond pain does not teach. It reminds. It doesn't command. It invites. It doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in presence. You can feel it in the warmth of sunlight, in the rhythm of waves, in the heartbeat of a loved one resting beside you. You realize that the sacred was never hidden. You were simply too loud to hear it. Now, when pain returns, and it does softly, as life always will, you do not resist. You greet it like an old friend. You listen, but you no longer fear what it says. You know its language. You've learned its rhythm. It no longer needs to shout to be heard. You've become fluent in the voice of the soul. There is no longer separation between darkness and light, between sorrow and joy. Everything belongs, every emotion, every breath, every heartbeat. All of it is the divine speaking in different tones. Pain was just one chapter of that voice, teaching you how to hear the rest. You begin to live as the mystics did, not above the world, but within it, quietly radiant. You don't preach, you don't prove, you don't try to fix. You simply walk in peace, and your presence becomes its own language. People around you begin to feel it. They don't know why, but in your silence, they hear something ancient, something kind, something true. The voice beyond pain is not dramatic. It doesn't need attention. It's the pulse of existence itself. It's the hum of stars, the sigh of oceans, the still knowing inside your chest. When you listen, it tells you only this: you are loved. You always were. You always will be. The soul that once cried out in agony now bows in awe because it understands. Pain was never punishment. It was prayer. It was how you were called back. Every tear was an offering. Every silence was an altar. Every scar was a verse in the scripture of your return. You realized that the journey was never about escaping pain, but about listening deeply enough to move through it, to reach the place where pain dissolves into wisdom, and wisdom dissolves into love, and love dissolves into oneness. This is the voice beyond pain. It cannot be described, only lived. It moves through everything, through laughter, through sorrow, through the pause between them. It is both the sound and the silence. It is both the question and the answer. Rumi once said, "I am not a drop in the ocean. I am the entire ocean in a drop." Now you understand. You are not a soul looking for God. You are God, looking at himself through your eyes. The separation was only a dream. The pain was only a veil, and behind it, love was waiting, infinite and patient. You stand now at the end of the journey, which is also the beginning. There is no more searching, no more clinging, no more asking why, only gratitude, only wonder, only the quiet truth that everything, the darkness, the fire, the wound, the healing, was love, disguised as life. So breathe deeply. Feel this moment. This is it. The sacred made visible. The voice of God, no longer hidden in your pain, but alive in your peace. The same light that once entered through the wound now shines from within you. And if your heart feels full, if tears rise not from sorrow, but from recognition, let them fall. That's what happens when truth finally finds its way home. If this journey spoke to you, stay close. There are more paths, more fires, more silences ahead, but you will walk them differently now, with faith instead of fear, with love instead of longing. And when the next soul crosses your path, lost in their storm, you'll know what to say. You'll speak with the same voice that once called you out of your pain, gentle, certain, divine. You'll say, "Don't be afraid. The fire will not destroy you. It will show you who you are." And that, at last, is the voice beyond pain. If these words touch something inside you, let them echo outward. Leave your reflection. Share the light. Subscribe if you wish to keep walking with it, because every listener, every seeker, every soul that turns pain into wisdom becomes part of one infinite story, the story of love remembering itself.